when you travel between countries, you need to exchange your US dollars for the local currency. Okay? The exchange rate between different currencies changes daily. Okay? And you can easily find the updated rates using the internet. Okay, and here we have a table showing you the currency exchange rate for a number of foreign currencies. Okay, so if you check out the table here, okay, you see the name of the currency on the far left, such as the British pounds. Okay, so that's the currency people in Britain used. Okay, and euro. Okay, most of the Europeans outside, I guess, the UK used a currency called euro, and also the Danish crown. Okay. Okay, so those are the three examples. All right, there are many others apparently. Okay, you also see the symbols in the second column. Now the symbols are not particularly useful for us. I think the financial sectors prefer to use symbols as abbreviations, I suppose. But you don't really have to worry about the symbols here. Okay. Okay. But I want you to take a look at the last column in the table, the column that is labeled value. Certainly, these are decimal numbers: 0.5456, 0.7968, 5.9373. Okay. Now, how do we interpret these values, by the way? Do you know? What do you think? What are these values in the last column telling you?
What your US dollar converts to?
Very good. So actually, it is spelled out here. Let me highlight it so that you can see more clearly. The values correspond to how much you're going to get for $1 in return, right? Okay. So for example, if you exchange $1 for British pound, you get 0.5456 back. If you exchange $1 for euro, you get 0.7968 back. And if you exchange $1 for Danish crown, you get 5.9373 back. So a little bit of well, related question, but not necessarily related to mathematics. Do you think the British pound is stronger, or do you think the US dollar is stronger based on this conversion rate?
It looks like the US dollar is worth less.
Worth less, and that is correct. Okay, why? Because for $1, you don't get back 1 British pound, by the way. Okay, based on the value in the last column, $1 only get you a little over 0.5 British pound, right? Far less than what we probably expected. Okay, so in that sense, British pound actually is stronger than US dollar. Now, using the same logic, do you think the euro is stronger, or do you think the US dollar is stronger?
The euro is stronger.
The euro actually is stronger. Once again, if you have $1, you only get back 0.7968 euro, right? Okay, still, the euro is actually stronger in this case, but not so for Danish crown. Well, compared to US dollars, well, you get a whole lot more back. Okay, for just $1 US, you really get 6 Danish crown back, right? So in that sense, the US dollar actually is stronger than the Danish crown. Is that clear what I mean by the values here then? Does it make sense? I don't get a whole lot of reactions here, so.
Oh, yes, it didn't make sense.
All right, okay. Okay, so let's get to what I really want to discuss today, the proportion. Okay, now the table, if you think about it more closely, is not particularly useful because if you indeed travel to Europe, whether you're going to UK or other European countries, it is extremely unlikely that you're going to just convert $1 US. It wouldn't be enough, right? Okay, even if you stay there for just 1 day or a few hours, you probably need more local currency. Okay, so what if you want to convert 50 US dollars into British pound, as an example? Okay, now the table doesn't tell you how much British pound in return you're going to get. Okay, so you have to do a little bit of calculation. Okay, so how do you carry out the calculation here? Well, let's take a look at this example in the bottom half of the screen. Okay. You can set up what is called a proportion to convert US dollars into British pounds. Okay. Suppose you want to determine how many British pounds is equivalent to 50 US dollars. So say you have 50 US dollars and you want to convert all of the $50 into British pounds. How much British pounds are you going to get in return? Do you understand the question here before we get to the calculation?
Yes,
You do?
but isn't it easy just to multiply the number by the British pound amount?
It
and
is.
that's it?
It is. It is. In fact, I will even take a step back and say that I'm not trying to teach you how to do currency exchange here. Perhaps some of you already know, if not most of you, realize that there are apps these days which can do the calculation for you. You don't even have to do this by hand. All right. So my purpose here really is not trying to teach you currency exchange, okay, or how to do that. Okay. I think I use this example trying to bring up this important concept of proportion, the underlying mathematics. Okay, that is the thing that you really need to learn. Okay, not so much about currency exchange. If you take a closer look at the data that I have on this handout, the data dated back to 2004. Why do I use the data that are like really 20 years ago? Okay, well, for one reason, if I use the most up-to-date currency exchange rate, you don't need me to teach you the math. An app can do it for you in an instant. Okay, so it's not so much about literally how you can convert US dollars into British pounds, but I'm using it as an example to show you what I mean by proportions. Okay, so let's see how you would have done it by hand. Okay, or how the calculator app help you do the calculations after all. Okay, so you set up something called a proportion. Okay, now proportion is a special kind of equations that features something like a fraction on both sides. Okay, so if you look at the calculation in the middle of the screen here, you see an example of a proportion. Okay. Okay. the left-hand side, okay, you may find it recognizable. $1 over 0.5456 British pound. Isn't that what you saw in the table to begin with? So the left-hand side of the proportion really is just the conversion rate. For $1, how much you can get in British pounds, okay, in return, okay. But our interest is what happened when you have 50 US dollars, right? So when you move on to the right-hand side of this proportion, okay, now you see how to set up or scale it up for 50 US dollars. How much British pounds we going to get in return, okay? So US dollars are being put on top and British pounds are being put in the bottom. Okay. Now, if you just look at this as a mathematical equation, which I'm about to do here, this is how it looks like. Okay. So I dropped the dollar sign and I also dropped the symbol for British pound here, and you end up with just a mathematical equations. Now, I said previously that both sides of this mathematical equation look somewhat like a fraction, okay? Well, technically, we don't really have a fraction because if you check out the denominator on the left-hand side, it's not exactly a whole number, you have a decimal. So technically, we're not dealing with fractions, we call them ratio instead, okay? But I think that is not the important point. The important point is, well, given an equation like this, how can you find the unknown x? How much British pounds you can get in return for 50 US dollars, okay? And to solve such a proportion, we have a very neat trick. Solved by cross multiplication. So what exactly do I mean by cross multiplication? Basically, you multiply diagonally. So the 0.5456 will multiply to 50, while the x will multiply to 1. So you multiply diagonally. We call it cross multiplication, okay? So 1 times x is just going to be x in this case. And 0.5456 times 50 turns out to be 27.28. So now we know what the unknown x is instantly. For 50 US dollars, what you get in return is 27.28 British pounds. Okay. So the idea that I want to introduce today is what I mean by proportion. Okay, proportion is a very special type of equations that featured both sides that look like a fraction. Okay, and whenever you have a proportion, you can solve it by cross multiplication, multiplying diagonally. Okay, and here we get the final answer 27.28. So if you just examine the calculations, it is not too different from what Julian was saying a moment ago. Don't we just multiply? You're absolutely right. It's just a multiplication. But I think I am introducing the proportion, which is the underlying concept. Okay. Well, maybe I should use a few more calculation here to help you get used to dealing with proportion here. So I will check out the exercises below. Okay. So originally it is for a group discussion, but over the years I realized that the question is somewhat confusing. So I may as well just do it with my class rather than having it as a group discussion. Okay. So based on the currency exchange rate in the table above, find the amount of local currency equivalent to 50 US dollars. And then find the number of US dollars equivalent to 200 units of the local currency. Okay? And if necessary, round your answer to the nearest hundreds. Okay? So let me use the part A, okay, as another example. Okay. Now, part A, once again, you want to convert 50 US dollar, right? So this is what you see here. Under part A, you have 50 US dollar, right? But this time you want to convert 50 US dollars into Danish crowns, right? Okay. So let's see if we can set up a proportion as well to answer this question and find out the question mark. Okay. Don't worry about the rest of the exercise just yet. Okay. So in fact, allow me to do this. I'm going to just erase everything on the back side so that it won't be a confusion. Okay. Let's just look at the conversion between US dollars and Danish crown. Okay, so we can imitate the example on the British pounds on top here. Okay, and do the same thing, right? Okay, we set up a proportion first. Okay. Now, a proportion like this is just a special type of an equation. So you have two sides, right? The left-hand side and the right-hand side. And recall from our earlier calculation for British pounds that the left-hand side always come from the conversion rate, right? All right. Well, what will be the conversion rate for Danish crown? So we're no longer looking at British pounds, rather we are dealing with Danish crown in this case, right? 5.9373, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see if we can write down the left-hand side of the proportion. Okay, for $1 US, okay, we're going to get 5.9373 Danish crowns. All right. Okay, so that is one side of your proportion. Okay. But now we want to exchange 50 US dollars, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need to know how much Danish crowns we're going to get in return. So far, so good.
Yes.
So do you see the parallel between the example above and this particular exercise about Danish crowns? Okay, so what do we do next then? Well, we will cross multiply, right? So the trick, okay, that we, oops, sorry. We cross multiply, right? Okay. To solve for the unknown x, right? Okay. So once again, we're going to have 1 times x equals 5.9373 times $50, right? $5.9373 times 50. I end up with 296.87 Danish crown. Is that right? So far, so good.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the idea of how to set up the proportion and how to solve a proportion to answer such a question. Okay, so I'm going to maybe write down the answer we just obtained here. Now we know the answer. 296.87 Danish crown, right? Okay. Well, what if I ask you to look at this one here? Again, I will cover up the extra part for now. And ask you to do a similar calculation for part B. This time, what are we trying to convert? $50 into euros, right? So see if you're able to come up with the amount of euro.
Will you scroll up so we can see the table?
Yes, absolutely. You're right. I need to show you the table, right? Very good. So now we are moving on to the euro, right?
Would it be X equals $39.84?
Sounds right. Let me work out the details here. Okay. If my memory serves, I think you are correct. I will write down the proportion first. So we have the conversion rate. $1 will give us 0.7968 euro, right? Now we want $50. How much euro we are going to get in return? So far, so good.
Yes.
All right, so once again, we do the cross multiplication. That is actually a very effective trick. Okay, cross multiply. Okay. And we end up with x equals 0.7968 times 50. All right. And indeed, I got 39.84. Is that what you said before?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Are you okay so far with the calculations? You follow up to this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to give you something slightly harder. All right, so let me cover this. I think it's a little easier uh, to understand the question if I kind of cover. Well, maybe I should not cover it. Instead, maybe I should just highlight it. Okay, so let's see if I can highlight this part. So here is another calculation that I would like you to look at. Okay. Let's say you come back from Denmark, okay, and you have 200 Danish crown in your pocket, and you want to convert it back into US dollars. How do you do that? So how much US dollars you're going to get back if you want to convert 200 Danish crowns? Now, once again, we're going to use a proportion, right? Okay, so we will write down proportion again. Proportion here. Now, for Danish crown, the conversion rate was 5.9373, right? Okay, so we are looking at this conversion rate for Danish crown, right? Okay, so
Are
let's
we like dividing instead of multiplying in this one?
looks like it. I think you're
Yeah.
right. Okay, but I'm going to try to be consistent here and work out this calculation like before. $1 we are supposed to get back 5.9373 Danish crown. Okay. Now, this time we have 200 crowns, all right? Okay, so I'm going to put the 200 crowns underneath. And it is the US dollar we need to find out. So notice the difference between this proportion and the one on the left-hand side. The key is that you have to make sure that the numerators match. The numerators here measure in US dollars, while the denominators measured the Danish crown, right? Okay, that's why the 200K appears in the bottom. And the number of US dollars, the unknown, stays on the top, okay? So make sure that you pay attention to the units, okay? US dollars on top, Danish crowns in the bottom, okay? And you need to be consistent on both sides of the proportion, okay? And after that, it's basically the same tactic, okay? We cross multiply. Okay, but this time when we cross multiply, notice what happened. Okay, the 1 is multiplied to 200, right? This 5.9373 is multiplied to x, okay? So what you end up with here is the 200 equals 5.9373 x in this case, right? So indeed, the equation looks very different if you compare the calculation on the left with the calculation on the right-hand side. That a somewhat different equation, okay? And we need to divide both sides. Right. By 5.9373 here to finalize the answer. The amount of US dollar that you get back in return is 33.69, and that is in US dollar. Are you okay with proportion so far? Like I said, I'm not overly worried if you whether you can do currency exchange. Okay, these days you don't really have to do currency exchange by hand. I'm just using this example to illustrate the idea of proportion and how you can solve a proportion. Are you okay with proportions?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I have some exercises on proportion in Moodle. I'm going to switch back to Moodle here. Said I switch back to Moodle, but where exactly is Moodle? Okay, I think I'm in business now. So let me switch back to Moodle here. Okay. Well, do you see this worksheet on proportion under March 24? Okay, so let me open up this worksheet under March 24. Okay, so you will find a few more exercises on proportion here. So far, I displayed number 1, 2, and 3. Would like to give it a shot? If I ask you to solve the proportion in 1 and 2, are you able to do that? And if you're able to solve 1 and 2, well, the more challenging one is number 3. So see if you're able to solve the proportion in 1 and 2 first.
Okay.
Again, try 1 and 2 first. If you're able to do 1 and 2, then check out number 3. Okay. Now, if there is one major takeaway in today's class, that is, at least for me, that is to, well, make sure that all of you know how to solve a proportion, okay? So if I give you a proportion in number 1 here, okay, make sure that you know how to solve for the unknown x, okay? The key trick here is you cross multiply, right? Okay, that's how you handle proportions. Right. So by cross multiplication, I mean, well, multiplying diagonally. Right? Okay. So 13 times x will be 13x. And then the 39 times 5,
195.
that will be 195, right? So let me stop here. Do you understand what I mean by cross multiplication?
Yes.
So far, so good? So once you cross multiply, well, the equation is a lot more recognizable, okay? To isolate the unknown here, we simply divide
13 by both sides.
both sides here by 13, right?
Came on to 15.
So what do I get? 15, is that right?
13, yeah.
Yes, did I do it right? Okay. All right. I guess we all passed the test then. Okay. Now, number 2 is done similarly. Okay, so number 2, once again, you're solving for a proportion. So the protocol here is that you cross multiply once again. Right. So if you cross multiply this time, I get 1 times 11 equals 2 times 6, right?
Right.
You see that?
Yes.
Okay. And now what do I do?
Divide both sides by 2.
Very good. So we divide both sides by 2. And I end up with 5.5, is that right?
Right.
So that would have been our answer. Are you okay with number 1 and 2 then? Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So let's take a look at number 3. Now, number 3 is more challenging in a sense that, well, I'm not giving you the proportion. It is almost like a word problem. So let's take a look at number 3. If a boat uses 25 gallons of gas to go 67 miles, how many miles can the boat travel on 75 gallons of gas? Okay. Now, because the proportion is not given to you explicitly, so it is on you to set up the proportion first before you go about answering this question. Okay. So just like the currency exchange problem, okay, we will have to set up a proportion first. So how exactly do we set up a proportion in this case? Well, let's see what we have on hand to work with. 25 gallons of gas allows the boat to go 67 miles. So these two figures work like the conversion rate that you saw in the currency exchange problem. 25 gallons will allow the boat to go 67 miles. All right. So that's basically one side of your proportion. Okay. So now we want to know how many miles the boat can travel on 75 gallons of gas. It is very important to recognize that gallons goes on top and miles in the bottom. Gallons on top, miles in the bottom. And because of that, the unknown miles here, X, is going to stay in the bottom, and the 75 gallons will go to the top. So make sure that you utilize the units here to help you set up the proportion properly. If the proportion is not done right, your answer is going to be wrong, right? Okay. So now it's just a matter of solving this proportion, right? Okay. So if I cross multiply, I'll have 25x equals 67 times 75, right?
$5,025.
And now we can finalize our answer. Okay. Divide both sides here by 25 to find the unknown, right? So if I divide 5025 by 25,
201.
201, right? So it's 201 miles.